Welcome everybody to Module 6 of Taking the First Steps. Today we'll be discussing social media strategy and the evolving intricacies that are involved with that. This is Module 6 out of an 8-module series.
And our guest speaker today is Yuri Kurumtali. He's a communication advisor and a social media strategist, and we're very fortunate to have him on today. Yuri has an extensive career in digital media advisory and communications advice. He's been a digital and volunteer coordinator for party leadership campaigns, a founding member of Convocation, a political and social media startup, and has worked extensively in the private, public, nonprofit, and academic sectors. Yuri has helped and advised more than 50 different campaigns provincially, federally, and municipally around the world. Yuri, we're so fortunate to have you on, and thank you for willing to join us. We're quite excited to hear your insights on this growing and exciting area.
Well, thank you, first of all, Abdi, for having me today. I think it's a fantastic subject, one I'm passionate about, and one I hope that your viewers, your subscribers, are able to get something out of it today. So I'm very fortunate and blessed to be here among you today, and I'm looking forward to sharing some exciting information as well.
So today we'll be talking about two macro topics. So first is how to build a social media presence in your community and in this virtual world. So in this, Yuri is going to talk about your social media identity and unspoken rules of social media presence. And then the second half, we're going to be talking about the rules of engagement and exploration in social media. So Yuri will be discussing engaging with different generations, so which social media channel to use, and that's obviously evolved over the past several years, especially coming out of the pandemic, as well as where and when to engage on social media. So we'll turn it over to Yuri. Thank you again for being with us.
Thank you very much. So let's get started with how do you build social media influence? And today I'm going to speak about my experience. I'm going to bring some best use cases, some not good cases. So bear with me as I use example while I talk about my slide. So when we talk about social media influence, it's a coin that has been termed because we hear every day on the phone, social media influencers. We hear about, your friend wants to be one. We hear about political influencers. What I want to measure in this slide is the ability of you thinking of running for office, or you just simply want to have a social media presence. How do you build influence? And the first question you need to ask is, what am I building? Am I building a homogeneous group or a diverse group of following? Because a lot of people, when they think about social media, it's a publish, subscribe model where I post something and I expect a return back. I expect something to come back as a like, as a comment, and that's very one-dimensional. Versus a diverse group, when you have a two-way traffic, the frequency is able you now to connect and diversify your following. And there's many ways we're going to do that. But this set the stage to understand, am I building my homogeneous group? Or I want to be a diverse group. I want to hear different opinions. Where are those people that think like me? Where are those people on social media that want to challenge me? And where are those that don't hear about me? So let's talk about ways how to build your social media presence in the next slide. When we speak about your identity, and that's very important because a lot of times and it's been the pandemic, right? We live in a world now where, yes, you have your identity, your passport. That's the way that government, people recognize your identity. But we live in a world where now you are recognized virtually. There's a virtual handshake that happens before someone meets you, right? And that is possible because of the devices that are being built by the places we are going every day. So your virtual presence matters, and that is your social media identity. So a lot of people say, you know what, Yuri, in high school I was passionate about sports. I developed my political career. What do I do? Do I need to remove all of my posts? Those are the questions you need to ask yourself from the beginning. And yes, there is possibilities of you going back and recreating and redesigning your social media identity. So it's very important because people will look you up. People will try to find you, understand what are your ideas, what are your platform, who are you associated with. So it's so important. So on this slide, and I put it because we want to understand where our social media network coincide. When you have devices, everyone has a social media, mobile TV. And when you have people as social groups, there's a risk of an echo chamber. And I've seen that happening a lot of campaigns. A lot of people, when they build their social media identity, they start by following the people they know, the social groups, they are kind of their friends on social media. What that often creates is an echo chamber. Essentially, an echo chamber reflects the same ideas that you have. You have I meet your friend, hey, share my post. It's really a chamber that you create with your own social media group. It becomes a challenge because you want to explore, you want to expand. So how do you break out of this echo chamber? Is when you travel, when you go to different places, when you go to networking events, at work, in the public, at home, with your neighbor. How do you build credibility in terms of your social media identity? How does that reflect your actual presence, local human presence? And that's a very important point I want to get out of today. Does your social media identity reflect who you are as a person? Does it reflect your values? And that's a question you need to sit down and reflect on yourself, because a lot of times people create an image of themselves, a branded image of themselves from the political parties they belong. And that's important. But what's more important is that your social media channel reflect who you are as a person, reflect your humanity, reflect the values and person you are. Because at the end of the day, chances are you will meet more people virtually than in person. And that happened during the pandemic, where people were only able to hear you, watch you, and listen to you. So what presence are you building with that? With the ability to explore comes a hug box. And what is a hug box? Essentially, it's a system, it's a limited system of ideas that comes when people you meet have the same ideas as you. When you extend the idea, there's a limited environment here, because now you're going out, spreading your ideas, talking about yourself in those social groups. It creates kind of a hug box where people meet your ideas in a limited space. So how do you build your social media identity? It's a balance between that echo chamber and a hug box. Where do you are engaged and where do I start exploring? Am I exploring too much or am I not engaging? What is the sweet spot between engaging with my network and exploring outside of it? We're going to talk about actually ways to do that in the next few slides. So to speak about the unspoken rules of social media presence. So let's explore. Where do we find more places to meet? Your social media presence, it's not only on social media. People forget that there's different ways to be present and to be listened to. And a lot of time when I talk to candidates, people, I tell them, well, hey, have you checked your Eventbrite, your Facebook or local newspaper? Those are also media channels that people are not leveraging as much as the social media channels. Who is your point of influence in sectors? Who is that person that you need to engage to talk about, for example, gun control? Who is championing the subjects in your local riding, municipality, district, province? Who is the champions? Find them, get a time to talk to them. Because what social media is able to give you is a visibility on what is being discussed. And is an opportunity for you as you start to develop your personal network. And it's at the meeting points of these areas. Ask your personal network. A lot of time when I work with candidates, they're like, oh, I'm just starting. I don't have many people that I know. Well, start with your 5-10 friends. Who do they know, right? And I've worked with candidates who are, a growing number of candidates who are this, we call it Generation Z, but essentially people who are 20, who start very young thinking about running, or people that have not seen anyone running as a friend or family, but are thinking about it. And those are people that have immigrated. Especially in Canada, we are seeing a rise in political engagement in communities and minorities that in their own country have never thought of running. There is a light. So where do we find those people that support us? It all starts with your personal network. Your personal network is your personal net worth. And act local, right? Act local. And I think that's one important takeaway as well. Social media, it's an invisible fill because you don't know who is watching and what is doing. And I think the spot is, where does my online effort meet the offline activities what I'm doing? When people see me online, am I going to meet them at the doors? Share your experience with local people. Find prospective politicians. Align yourself. And when I work with different politicians, and what I'm seeing is that they're aligning as a generation. They know. But for example, as a Gen Z, hey, how many Gen Z are running in Canada? How many Gen Z are running in the world? So there's a growing community of people you can find. Hey, you know what? Oh, I come from a country I've never run. Hey, you know what? There are people that are thinking about you. I see a growing number of political science students want to join group. That's one place to start. People that study politics wants to get involved. How do you get volunteers? At the end of the day, what you want to be is prepared. Be prepared. Be over prepared. Speak to everyone. And what people are afraid of, especially in the beginning, coming from communities, coming from different places, is that they don't know who they need to know. And that's the challenge. And when I work with candidates and on campaigns, it's the ability to connect to anyone, develop your network from scratch, find those people that aligns with the same ideas. What are you building your platform? What are the main ideas? Who's championing those ideas in your riding? Talk to them. Go on coffee. That no one will say no to a meeting. This is how you develop from scratch. And those are the unspoken rule, because the most common, misconception is that people with a big following will get elected, or people that have a huge influence. The fact is that you can build your influence from scratch. The fact that there's many tools to do that. And I'm seeing a lot of campaigns where, you had thousands of followers, people were talking about them online, but when it comes to election, they lose. Why? Because the other candidate had local presence. They had that ability to connect to their neighbors, to communities, and that can go hand in hand. So the second slide about unspoken rules will speak about ways, digital ways. Now, let's talk about digital ways, how to reconcile your social media presence. And I love this picture. Why? Because online, we're just having that upper vision. We have what's going down there? Who is moving the same direction? But we are also elevated by this technology, which keeps on increasing. Like Nathaniel said, like the speed of technology and the ability to connect to people is unprecedented. But how do I, tone it back and connect to people that I want? So let me break it down for you on how to do that based on my experiences. So a lot of time people will be, you know what, I have 1,000 followers. I'm growing, fantastic, a great engagement. I'm like, hold on. So I'm going to ask them a question. So who is engaging with you? Where are they following from? And they're like, oh, I don't know. I think I see some of them from my writing. I know those people. I'm like, well, don't you want to know who those people are? So it's very important to demarcate and differentiate who is following you and who are you following, because that dictates how your social media presence is built, but how your ideas are being spread. Because this is how, we're going to talk about the spreading of ideas. Is it an echo chamber? What is happening? Every idea you put is come back to you on your own circle, or you're now engaging in particular communities that you have not. So the key here is understand who is following you and understand where you want to spread your social media risk. I'm going to talk about the tools later. Social media conversations, very important. We talk about social media identity, but there's a million conversations happening every single day on social media: YouTube, X, Facebook, Instagram. How do you leverage them? And people will see now there's a rules of engagement. I can pick what conversation I want to engage as a political candidate, as someone that want to see what people are talking. You now have a leverage of understanding and listening to social media conversation. Is that your neighbor? Is someone being spread having an issue that they want to talk about to a particular office? So understanding and watching those conversation gives you an ability now to listen, but to interact, to pick your battles when you want to join this conversation. And a lot of candidates, they're like, well, I'm not sure if I want to join this conversation. Oh, I'm going to be attacked. Oh, I don't want to have fake profile talking to me. But the answer is, that's how you gain visibility. Pick your battles carefully. What are the battles worth taking? Do you have a social media team? A lot of time what I see is the same. I see a lot of people spending a lot of time in the beginning. You know what? Oh, it's my image. It's my identity. I want to fight for it. And they spend hours and hours on social media conversation and replying and engaging. That's great. But are you spending the time rightfully? Are you actually leveraging what is not there? So who, what, but where, right? So a lot of time people, you know what? It's a great conversation. It's a great topic. Okay, but it's happening outside my riding. It's happening outside my constituency. How does that impact your campaign or your race? A lot of time people will engage in conversation but not necessarily related to the local riding, and that sometimes is a waste of resources because you have limited time and limited resources. And what I'm seeing as well is that X, Instagram, LinkedIn have us being verified or not, right? So this is very key because a lot of time when I speak to those candidates or politicians, they want to be recognized, they want to be verified. And not everyone can just get verified. There's a price for it right now, right? You got to pay a price. Is it essential to get verified? My answer is, it's really up to you. Are you building your profile from scratch? It might take some time. Build credibility first. Build a following. And yes, absolutely, get verified. What is the impact of getting verified is that you won't have fake profile about you. A lot of times, a lot of people are creating profile about you. If you become influential enough in a race, close to a race, you will have attacks on social media. You will be attacked in conversation. So having a verified profile is essential to demarcate you from other fake social media profile try to attack you. And obviously, money. How do we run campaigns? How do we run social media ads? How do we build it? Money is needed, right? A lot of times when I work with campaigns, a lot of money is being spent on ads. I would say when I ask, the last few campaigns I worked, we ask them, okay, how are we using the money? Yeah, you know what? We're going to save the money at the end, close to the election, we're going to do ads. Okay, great. That's fantastic. A lot of money now is being spread on ads. And the challenge here is, how much money, first of all, should I raise on ads? Where do I spend the money on ads and how? And a lot of time, what I advise and I work with candidates, I believe in organic growth. I believe that the more organic you can grow, the better it is, especially in the beginning. So people right now listening to me, thinking of running as a candidate, thinking that, you know what, I want to choose a political path. They're like, okay, well, I need to build my social media presence. How do I do that? Well, start organically, as I said previously. Start building your presence. Start sharing the ideas that resonate to you. Start following the influences that matters to you. Okay, great. What about paid growth? Here's a strategy that I've seen worked, is testing, trial and error. Instead of spending thousands of dollars on a particular campaign, spend 300. Test it for a week. What is the return on investment? It works great. Try it in a different way. So there's different ways to how to use paid growth. And I think with increased capacity of social media platform, it is very important to understand as well that political data has become very sensitive, right? A lot of social media platforms, or censoring political data or preventing people to have political ads is only during a limited amount of time. That's why organic growth will help you get a better chance, right? So understand that you need to focus your effort on organic growth.
So we'll go ahead into the discussion, and we'll start off with the first one here. Yuri, thank you so much first for your presentation. I think it undoubtedly was very insightful, and it provided a lot of context and key lessons learned from your extensive experience. Yuri, I mean, from before you got into politics, what was your career path? What brought you to this moment? What did your career and upbringing look like?
Yeah, I mean, I come from myself from a little island called Mauritius, a very small, beautiful island, which I love to visit soon. So it was lot of student engagement. I always believe in engaging. I was probably one of the most active person at school. Yes, I was maybe not the best student, but I was the most active student. So still remember being engaged in organizations such as ISEC, which is a student exchange program. And really, ISEC was the largest student-run organization. And what it made me discover is the ability of different communities to come together and achieve one goal. And I was able to do that when I came to Canada. I was able to lead a team right away because I had that experience from ISEC. So before I got involved in politics, I was engaged in student organization. TEDx talk. I love the spread of ideas. I was always passionate about that ability to transform ideas into action, and how we can do that with politics. But I'm a very I studied psychology. I took the path. I work in different sectors, banking, financing, but politics was always a passion. Was always something that always came to me as a service, right? So this is what I've done, and I do enjoy what I'm doing right now as well, helping politicians, candidates across the world, especially people of minorities, people who never thought of running. So I really enjoy doing that, Abdi.
No, absolutely. Thanks so much, Yuri, and I'm sure you're realizing your experience in Mauritius and here. There's a lot of transferable or commonalities in how you've seen organizing and the role that some of these communication innovations has played. What drove you specifically to get into politics and community advocacy? Perhaps when you were in Canada, and perhaps in the Canadian political system more broadly.
Yeah, so I think that it's the people around you as well, right? I think I had a opportunity that my best friend or friends were involved in politics. I had the ability to engage very young as a volunteer. Um, so what drove me into politics is essentially my desire to do good for society. And despite the fact that I was an immigrant, I had opportunities here in Canada to get involved. Um, I did not even understand party politics because even back home there's very few parties that give you a chance to work with them. But here in Canada, you don't need to belong. You just need to serve. And for me, the ability to serve got me into politics because essentially politics for me is the art of serving people. And how do we do that is by community engagement. I've loved to help my own community in Canada here. I've developed an association that help people to immigrate and find a network of people professionally. So politics for me, it is a continuation of what I've been doing for the society, and people can argue that it's not the end goal, but it's something that I keep serving. And yes, you can make a change in politics, but you can also make a change with politics. There's a big difference here, working in politics and engage with politics. But all that to say is that I'm a big believer of community changes. I'm a big believer that communities and diaspora need to work together in the future generation of politicians.
No, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And I mean, just some key lessons or key highlights from your experience working with some of these types of candidates, in any context, really? I mean, what are some of key highlights that or key lessons that you discovered?
I think try. I've met candidates from all over the world, but what the common thing I've seen with them is that they have sometimes never thought of running. The idea came to them because the friend told them of running, and get engaged. Right? One of the key lessons from candidates is that they've taken that step ahead. They listened to someone. They've taken a leap of faith, and at the end of the day, whether you're successful or not, you've developed a change inside of you. You develop a service. You understood what community is about. The key lesson is that you will meet amazing people in a campaign. You make your best friend working in a political campaign. Still have a lot of friends that I speak for, the last 10 years. It's a way for you to get engaged. There's so many lessons, but if I have to pick one lesson is, what change are you willing to make in society through politics? Can you make that change without politics? That's the question we want to ask people. But the key lesson here is, do it, try it. There's nothing wrong what can happen.
Thank you, Yuri, for those insights. From your personal experience, what do you think is the biggest deterrent for underrepresented demographics seeking office, especially in Canada?
In Canada, what I've seen is lack of resources, lack of information. Let me break it down, education. So a lot of people that wanted to run didn't know where to start. Where do I find resources? A lot of time those resources are stored in political parties. So the challenge for people is, where do I find information about how to run? And that's why you guys are doing a fantastic job, guys. Be Heard Project is a good example of how you can learn without being affiliated to any political parties. That's number one, is information. How do I start? Where do you get information? Without being affiliated to a party. Underrepresented demographics needs information, because we probably never, even in Canada, a lot of immigrants are running. You know what? Where do I start? And most of the time, they are not on the same playing level as someone that had political partners, political people in their own family. So information is very important, number one. And the question is the biggest one. So I will stick to information. I think information is key. Knowledge is key. And we can talk about money later, but obviously money is needed for a campaign. But information, even how to finance a campaign, I'm sure that's going to is one of your topics, is super important. But access to information is what I think is the biggest deterrent for underrepresented people, for sure.
And acknowledging that, so what piece of advice do you have for those that, like, once they get the information, may not think they have the political capital or experience necessary to make a difference in elected office?
Subscribe to Be Heard Project on YouTube. And that's one of the ways, because you guys are talking about that. But the piece of advice that I have for political people that are thinking about how to capital is understanding that it is a start, right? Yes, capital is needed, but what you need is a strong vision. You need to be able to communicate your vision that people have capital. So most recently, I attended a political fundraiser, and this senator came on stage and he said something that I'm like, it's very catchy. He said, the good news is that we have money to fund the campaign. The bad news is that it's in your pockets. So that made me reflect, because I think that people have money to donate. It's the ability to connect and share your vision, but align with people for them to be able to buy in your vision. We can talk about campaigns that I'm working right now. People running for the first time and raising hundreds and thousands of dollars. In Canada, there's always a restriction, right? So a lot of people what I suggest is start with your own social circle, expand it, being able to have your own social network incentive. So the piece of advice I have for people is align your vision with people that believe in you. Ask, do not be afraid to ask, right? A lot of people will be like, well, here's a link. What about the link? Who are you? Being able to transmit your vision in person, online is very important. And political capital doesn't only mean money. It's about who do you know that have worked or volunteer in politics. So I think very early, if you're thinking of running and you have not got the experience or not got the resources, is what have people that were in the same position did, right? And that's a good place to start, because I'm working currently on a campaign that person running for the first time, raising hundreds of thousands of dollars, and didn't have experience, but it is what they're valuing, because what they are saying, the main reason or motivation is, you know what? I don't have experience, but what is experience? The only way to get experience is to actually do it. And it's resonating with people. I think we live in an age where people want to see a new wave of politicians, politically engaged people. People want to redefine what a politician is, whether it's a software engineer running for first time, whether it's anyone from different technologists running for politics. And I think we are seeing that, and it's very encouraging to see people that are running are not lawyers. And I say lawyers because when I look at the statistics of in Canada, Nathaniel, of people that have run, a high percentage were lawyers, right? A high were in office. What we are seeing now is small business owners, people that have different paths into politics. So whether you belong in different industries, sector, there is a path for you because people are taking it. The advice is start, do it, have a vision, share with people, with your own industry. Because at the end of the day, those are the people that will help you, that will expand your network. So there is a path for everyone that has no experience and no capital. And the starting point is talking and engaging with different community groups and people that believe in you.
Thanks for that. And the last question we have for you is, I know you've kind of talked about it briefly, but maybe if you want to just give a high-level recap of what role does social media play in your vision of political engagement?
In my vision of political engagement, social media plays an essential role in defining where your social media identity, your social media influence, and how you want people to view you before meeting them. It is important to have a social media strategy. It is important to have some capital that you want to invest in social media. It is important to have a team that understands the influence of what social media plays. The key here is diversifying. Understand the rules of engagement and exploring. Build your image. Have mentors. Look at what other campaigns are doing. Look at what successful campaigns have done. Look at what mistakes other people have done. Learn from them. Be engaged. Try new experiences. Nothing wrong with trying. Use different channels. So in a nutshell, Nathaniel, this is what I would say the role of social media plays. It is increasingly important in this day and age.
Thank you for sharing your insights on those.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a very engaging conversation. And this slide is really about engagement with different generations. It's so important. And it's interesting because when I've knocked on many doors in Canada, a lot of times you meet the grandparents or the parents at the door, because people who are working on never at the doors, from whether you're from 20 to 40, 50, people are always working. Even if come at night, we are doing some social activities. So there's an increasing number of people that you're not speaking at the doors. So how do you speak to those younger, let's say midlife people that are not there? It's about leveraging social media conversation. It's about understanding where they are. Whether we talk about all of the social media channels. I'm not going for all of them, but understanding where people are. For example, I know that my own parents now use more Facebook than I do. I know that the generation that are growing up, but I mean growing up like Gen Z or, 18, 20, are using TikTok or using all the social media channels to be present. So where are you visible, right? How do you engage different generation? Be present in all of those platforms. Understand how to leverage this platform, because people are there. It's just for you to understand where in this economy of attention, where do I fit in? Get people attention and re-engage them in person. And that's the key to engage with different generation. Understand where they are and engage with them in person. Invite them as well. So where to start? And that's very important, because this point of a conversation is maybe someone who listening to me never thought of running. Maybe you have an idea, or maybe you are running. Where do you start? I talk about party resources, guys, but there is a lot of places where you can find, engagement. There's a lot of groups that I'm seeing in Canada that are being built to increase political and civic engagement. Talk to them, get mentorship. If you don't belong to a party, you can buy membership, right? If you don't want to belong to a party, where do I get those resources? This project is a great example on how to do that. Engage with non-for-profit, non-partisan group that talks about politics, and I'm seeing that a lot with Monetary Group. I see a lot of countries actually having those youth engagement group going to the parliament and increasing youth. Find if one of your groups, communities have a civic engagement group. Create something. If it's not something, create a vibrant social digital team. If you don't have people, create. I'm sure there's 5-6 people that that may want to start with you, but we have experience with social media. Create a vibrant community. Diversify your content. It's so important, because people, what I've seen is just let's put a picture or let's put a video. Diversify, engage with your audience. That's where the key is. Video, blogs, live, right? I see great politicians. When I say great, I mean great at doing with social media. And what they do is they are able to use their own tools to their advantage. And that comes with practice, right? If you're able to communicate using your own device, and everywhere you go, there's a story you can build. That's key. Get comfortable with the tools you have. Diversify your content. Leverage all the social media platform to talk to different generations, like we talked before. Find trending local issues. If you really want to speak, where are you listen? Are you being listened on issues that matters to you, or issues that you're fighting for and matters to your constituents? Find those local issues, champion them. Use social media and network incentive to do that. Invite people in town hall. I love this word, digital door knocking, and I kind of like coined that. But I'm like, if we are not able to knock on doors during COVID, how can we knock on doors of people? But digital door knocking is super important, because you know that you won't hit everyone at the door. But what is your strategy of finding people digitally? Where are they? People spend time on their phone. How do I engage with them? And the last thing I want to say is using local keywords and hashtags, because we all know social media is driven by algorithm. How do I find local keywords and hashtags? And there's so many tools. We're going to discuss that in the next tool. But use local hashtag to increase your engagement with the algorithm, because what the algorithm does, it connects people that speak about the same thing at the same time using the same local hashtag. So leverage and find those local hashtags in the issues that matters to you. And the second, the slide is exploring. How do I get out? How do I use tools? So this, I'm not trying to promote any tools, but it's a list of tools that are available that you can use to listen. There's a lot of social media listening tools. There's a lot of data that you have from parties as well, if you belong to one. Identify your micro and macro influencers. Micro is someone that has a lot of local influence, maybe can be less than 1,000 followers, but are very active on social media to the point where they can generate engagement for you. Macro influencers are the one that has tens of thousands of followers. And you're seeing that a lot in the States or even in Canada, where you have a lot of now people working in music, in other industries, having a message from politicians and engaging their audience. It's all about that social media influence they have, and that the message is passing across. So you will see that in the next 2 years, where whether it's the US or Canadian election, where you see a growing number of people, of musicians, of influencers, leveraging their platform to be able to promote a message. And always be careful about fake users and trends and bots. Oh my God, the deep fake world is scary. It is, because it can create image of you that you are not. So there are tools out there that actually able to tell you who is a fake user or not. Don't spend your money on fake users. Be able to actually understand who they are and don't engage with them, right? But there will be fake users, trends, and bots. There's different strategies to talk about it, and happy to talk about it in a different setting. But there are tools that exist and have a strategy about it. Timing matters, so important. A lot of candidates that I work with say, okay, when do I start promoting my fundraiser? When do I start engaging? There's no time. The timing is always now. Thousands of people are tweeting, thousands of people are engaging. Have a strategy. Understand that every conversation can mean an opportunity for you to engage. Have a theme, right? What I do with campaigns, like, you know what? Monday is going to be about you. Personal Monday. Tuesday is social. Hey, put your family in the picture. Wednesday is charity. What is a cause that you have? Diversify your content per day. Have a theme where people will say, you know what, I'm going to engage with him on that day. I expect him to talk about his campaign every Friday. Every Wednesday, I know I'm going to have a personal story. So get creative, get fun with this campaign, because timing matters. People will expect you to be engaged. And the last one is super important. Important because I think that these are the campaigns that I've worked, but I was able to create a social media impact. A social network incentive is essentially to create a social goal for people. And what I've seen personally is, I'm a big passionate about social physics, and what social physics does is use mathematical model of physics to understand psychology of crowds, right? There's this macro data happening. So what I've seen is that when people understand that there is a limited environment, ideas spread faster. An example, right? We know that there is a long weekend happening in May, right? What you will see, a lot of campaigns will have their best ideas, or they're putting out one of the best ads to engage before that. Why? Because they know the engagement with families, neighbors will increase in the long weekend. So timing matters, but create an incentive for people to connect. Create a social goal by, resharing, by liking it. You have access to something else. Create a social media incentive for people to connect. Because at the end of the day, what happens is that when there is your neighbor that understand who you are, what you stand for, there's a higher probability that the spread of ideas will flow. So you need to create an incentive to do that. And there's many, many campaigns that I've worked that was able to do that by raising money, by talking about a particular campaign, saying, you know what, it's first time running, here's network, talk to him. create those incentive for people, because what it does for you, it's threefold, fivefold, because you're creating a network that is expanding for you.
Thank you, Yuri, for sharing all of your insights today. We really appreciate it. And I know viewers out there appreciate this kind of sense of guidance when it comes to strategy and how to use social media, even though we all have these tools that we use every day. Do you have any final remarks for this module?
I just want to say thank you. I think that, we can talk all day about social media. It keeps evolving. What I would say is, there's tools out there, there's information. There is a lot of people that are in the same position as you. Ask, try, connect. And I'm happy to speak to anyone, personally, if you have any questions, Nathaniel and Abdi, in the future. Something that I think it's super important, and I commend both of you to have put something like this, possible, because I think it's everyone can build their social media presence. Everyone can actually be successful starting from scratch. So I appreciate the opportunity to be able to present today.
Thank you. Stay tuned for our next module, Campaign Finances 101.